would a company be interested to install your dispenser?
For every machine that we install, we can help an organisation save upwards of 30,000 single-use plastic bottles a year with zero single-use waste. I'm Ryan Nelson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Refill.
When you spend 50 grand on R&D, were you working or you just quit your 9 to 5?
Yeah, I think this is a really important topic to talk a bit more about because...
Hey, Ryan. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today, buddy?
Oh, I'm good, JB. I'm good. How are
You're
you?
good. I'm good, thanks. Ryan, before we start, to get to know about you and your business, I just want to say I was really thrilled to understand what Refill does and how it started and how you have grown from being local to global. So this interview is very interesting for me because I'll be learning a lot, and so as our audience as well who are listening to this one. So without any further delay, Ryan, can you briefly introduce yourself and explain what Refill does?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Ryan Nelson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Refilled, and we're a Sydney-based climate tech startup that's trying to eliminate single-use plastic caused by the beverage industry. And a little bit about me, I mean, I'm a 33-year-old guy, Australian born and bred, and I grew up about an hour and a half west of Sydney in the Blue Mountains, which is a beautiful place to grow up. And now I live in Coogee, right near the beach, and pretty close to Sydney CBD. So life's good, and I'm running my own company, and I'm excited to be here today and be on the podcast with you and see where the conversation goes.
Perfect. Okay. So tell me, how does your I'm gonna come straight to the point. How does your business make money and what drives profitability?
Sure thing. So being a climate tech startup, at the end of the day, I mean, the most fundamental driver and most important piece of any business is making profit. And if you don't make profit, then you'll be out of business, and your creation and your mission and what you stand for can no longer exist. So Refilled's been very focused on day one on building a profitable business. Even though we're using venture capital to grow and scale the business, we do have really strong underlying unit economics. And to put it simply, we make money in two ways. We manufacture these amazing high quality smart water dispensers.
Yep.
Think of it kind of like the iPhone compared to the Nokia of water dispensers. We're really taking it to the future and adding cool features like the ability to mix and match flavors and add in caffeine, vitamins and minerals and electrolytes into your drink on tap. And so we rent those machines and we sell them to businesses. And then the other way we make money is actually on the drinks themselves and the flavors and the liquids and the recipes and the formulations we've made to be able to provide, peach and mango with electrolytes on tap.
When I did my research on your company, so my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, so you approach companies, you sell your product, and you will install this dispensers in their office space, and you will charge them
Yep.
for the dispenser as a one-off fee. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. And the second is an employee, and the company will pay for the dispenser, and also, do they pay for the drinks as well, or is it expected for the employees to pay out from their pocket?
Yeah, good question. So we're B2B right now. So we actually have the ability to do both B2B and B2C. And the key difference is who pays for the drinks. We've got businesses like Google, Meta, Atlassian, Asana, DocuSign, JP Morgan, some of the best companies in the world that have installed our machines in their offices to hydrate their employees, to reduce plastic waste, and encourage people to, collaborate and communicate and hang out in the office around the water cooler. But we've also installed machines in public spaces like universities and gyms and hotels where you or I can come bring your credit card, you can tap, you can buy a drink for, $3 and refill your own drink bottle with our delicious beverages.
But $3, what's the limit? Is there a limit to refill and the bottle size?
That's about a 600 ml refill.
600 ml. So the costing is done based on
Volume.
On the volume. Okay, there you go. Good.
Yeah. You actually pay for exactly how much you refill. So
Right.
it's very transparent, and you pay for what you use.
Right. So right now, the companies where you have installed like Google, Meta, so the employees, they get a free drink from the dispenser right now because the company is absorbing the cost.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Why would a company be interested to install your dispenser? How are you selling that from a sustainability? I understand you're trying to eliminate plastic waste, but why would a company be
Mm.
interested to have that product?
Well, the reality is that a lot of these clients already spend a lot of money every year on bottled and canned drinks. Like they've been providing drinks for decades. You get coffee, you get soft drinks, energy drinks, vitamin waters. You even get lunch. At some of these places, you can bring in your partners and your children, and you can all eat free. And that's what the best companies in the world do to attract the best talent and to keep the best people working for them. And so Refilled was a natural fit because they're going through hundreds of thousands of plastic bottles and cans a year that are trying to be recycled, but it still relies on the individual to do the right thing and put it in the correct bin. Whereas Refilled's about elimination. So for every machine that we install, we can help an organization save upwards of 30,000 single-use plastic bottles a year with zero single-use waste while still providing free drinks to the employee or the guest.
All right. From the point of installation of the dispenser or the company, when would you start making a break-even point? Does it take 3 months, 4 months, or 6 months? On a good
Sure.
rate.
So the machines aren't cheap. Right now being a startup, our cost to manufacture is higher than is projected in the long term. But on average, we can actually pay a machine off in less than 12 months. In the best case scenario, we've had units that have even been paid off in 3 or 4 months because they're just so popular.
Ah, interesting. That's great. That's a good return, though. So correct me if I'm wrong. So your capital annual growth rate, if from 2023 or 2022, you did some 20 to 25 pilot testing, and then
Yeah,
you
that's right.
scaled up to 100 plus by 2025. So I'll say
Correct. Yeah.
it is a very good growth rate you guys have had in the span of 4 years.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what the number was. But it was like something like 600%
Yeah.
in about 12 months. So the business, really had its breakout year last year. We spent the first 2 years doing all R&D and engineering and
Mm,
actually creating this product. And it started in a garage, and now we've got, industrial designers and electronics engineers and in-house software engineers. But it was just me that helped build the first product. And, now, we build hundreds of them, and hopefully we'll build thousands soon and deploy them around the world.
great. Now you touched a very important point, which is very I believe it's important, which is the R&D part. Everyone has an idea, right? Everyone has an idea. They may be struggling to how do I test this product out, test this idea out. Is it something my customers would be interested, or is it can I sell this product? So what was your R&D process when you had this idea come up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the story now that gets really overlooked. Like people see where we're at now, but they have no idea how hard it was to get the first prototype made.
Mm,
Like I've spent 10 years working in SaaS and in the software space. I haven't been in hardware, and I'm not a mechatronics engineer. I'm not an industrial designer. I know none of this, and it was just all self-taught through Google and YouTube and just deep research just of an evening. I just spent hours and hours and hours just going deeper and deeper and deeper into like beverage dispensing technology, and competitors overseas, and realizing that there was a huge gap. And so I eventually cobbled together a system that typically pours drinks at a pub. And then I engaged a small industrial design agency to build a box and program some software. So instead of your finger pressing that little beer gun to pour the Coke or the soft drink,
yep.
it was actually a touchscreen display with a user interface. And it took about 6 months to build the first prototype, and it cost me about 50 grand to get the first prototype up and running and get it off the ground.
And you had the capital saved for that prototype?
It was all bootstrapped. It was all my own funding. Like I used my personal savings, and I said to my girlfriend, now wife, Nicole, I said, "Hey babe, like I've got this crazy idea to build this, new type of drink dispenser. I think there's a huge opportunity here." And I was like, "I'm going to spend 50 grand on it. And if I lose it, I'll go get a, high paying corporate job. But if I don't do this, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." And so, it ended up being 65 grand. I actually went a bit over. I didn't tell her that part.
Not
But
anymore.
we were, yeah, yeah. We were so close. I knew if we spent another 15 grand, we could get it to market. And we got our first order from Google. And once we got Google, it's just taken off since then.
Wow. And what was your reaction from your girlfriend Nicole at that time when you proposed this idea?
Yeah. Yeah, she's always been incredibly supportive. So she's always known that I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I've spent the last decade working in startups as an employee or a first employee, so really early stage startups. And she always knew that I wanted to take a risk and start my own business. So, there's been times where we've doubted it, and it's been quite tough and lonely being an entrepreneur. But Nicole's always been, my number one fan and biggest supporter, and I definitely wouldn't have achieved it without her.
Wonderful. That's so nice. Um, the question is, when I checked your website, you have three flavors. Correct me if I'm wrong again. No sugar, low sugar, and electrolytes. How did I
So no. There's three types of drinks you can get from the machine, but there's actually 13 flavors
flavors?
that can
Yes.
create over 640 combinations.
So the companies, the dispenser. So one dispenser, I can get 640 combinations of flavors
Combos,
from one, just
correct.
one
Yeah,
installing
so
one dispenser.
from one machine. Yeah, correct. So you can come up with your drink bottle or your cup, you can place it down, and then the first choice is whether you want still or sparkling water. Then you can select up to three flavors, and the machine can stock up to 9. And so you might choose peach and mango, whereas I want lemon or lime.
Hmm.
Maybe I want to add a twist of strawberry in there as well. We got blood orange, mixed berry, pineapple, coconut, like a huge variety of flavors. And then your last choice is whether you want to turn it from a flavored water into a functional drink. So do you want electrolytes? Do you want caffeine? And do you want vitamins and minerals? And we're also working on collagen and a protein as well. So our goal is to be able to make such a large variety of drinks available via this system that there's always something for everyone. And you don't have to resort to single-use plastic and throwing it out 5 minutes later.
What was the thought process in designing these flavors? Why 640?
Well, um, at the end of the day, 5 choices and how to mix them is a
Mm,
is a good amount for consumer choice without having fatigue. So if you have too many options, like let's say there was like 15 options in one machine and over thousands of combinations, that can actually create fatigue for the consumer because there's just too much
okay.
choice. And so with 5 selections and being able to mix up to 3, it seemed to be the right number for people to be able to find something that they wanted to try.
With that right number you mentioned, was it just a random number you picked it up, or what were there any research done from a marketing, from a psychological perspective of how humans think,
Yeah, definitely.
you know, how,
AI didn't exist at the time. Like
yeah,
3 years ago, I don't think ChatGPT was out yet. And I just looked at competitors. So I looked at brands over in the US, in Europe, and I looked at bottled and canned brands and sort of how many flavor varieties they might have. And then other dispensing technologies, like more traditional dispensing technologies, you'd look at sort of the variety that they would provide. And you'd know that these big companies would have spent tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars developing their products, and they would have done the psychology. So you know that you can trust that they selected 5 for a reason, not 15 or not 2. So there's breadcrumbs that these businesses leave behind that you can learn from.
wow, that's a smart move, man. I mean, look, instead of investing, hiring someone and doing the research, R&D, sending surveys, getting to know, but you rather just followed an existing established firms who have done profits or doing good and learn from them, which is great.
Yeah,
You you mentioned your first client was Google. Correct me if I'm wrong.
mm,
You were
that's right.
you you were a startup, right? And
Mm.
the point I forgot to ask is, when you spend 50 grand on R&D, were you working or you just quit your 9 to 5?
Yeah, good. That is a good question as well. That's important. I think for the listeners here, I'm assuming your audience is heavily entrepreneurial,
Yes.
right? Or
Working
founders or
full
people
time. Yeah,
interested
they're
in
wanting
in
to
businesses.
exactly it's wanting a side hustle, or they're wanting to quit and start become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think this is a really important topic to talk a bit more about because you don't get to having Google and Facebook as clients unless you do the most important phase before that, which is the first year. And in the first year, it's so hard. It's the hardest year to get off the ground.
Why?
Kind of like taking off a plane.
Why do you say it's hardest? What? Tell me about more about that.
You're completely alone. There's so much self-doubt. You have no resources. You've got no money. You don't have a team. and you might have a crazy concept. And so I was working at the time, to answer your question. I was the full-time head of sales at another transport and logistics startup.
Okay.
And I was just obsessed with this idea. And so of an evening, I'd just find myself researching this space. And eventually I built up enough conviction while I had my full-time job that I wanted to give this a go. And so I had my savings and I actually bootstrapped it while I was still working, and built the first product on the weekends, and engaged a contractor to help do some of the welding and the work that I couldn't do. And a really interesting part of my story is I actually managed to raise my first $500,000 in pre-seed funding while I still had a full-time job.
How did what is that? I mean, explain about that. What is that pre-seed funding?
Yeah. So um,
On
to get any
layman
business
terms,
off the
keep it
ground,
simple, if that's easier. Just
yeah, yeah, yeah. To get any sort of business off the ground, you need capital, you need money,
correct.
and you can either bootstrap, which is what I did,
Yep.
or you can use other people's money. And to do that, you need to sell shares in your business. And so rather than getting a partner from day one and going 50-50, and maybe they put in 50 grand and I put in 50 grand, I decided to keep 100% of the business myself, build that first prototype, and then with that validation, I spoke to, I don't know, maybe over 150 investors. And eventually I found a couple of individuals that have made lots of money in life and they wanted to invest in my startup. And so they put in $250,000 each. At the time, I think for about 10% of the business. And that was enough capital to get going. And once I got that $500,000, I quit my job and went full time.
I have two questions here in this process. You said the first year was very tough and you had a lot of doubts. You were alone. I believe imposter syndrome must have been kicking in. How did you come out of it? What was pushing you?
Well, I've just got an insatiable drive to build my own business and be my own boss and create the sort of company that I would want to work at.
Mm,
And so it's really just an internal motivation for success and money and pushing myself. I believe I'm a high achiever, and I wanna stand out in life and, like, test my limits. And that for me wasn't sitting in a safe, secure job. I always knew I wanted to do this, and the hardest part was taking the leap of faith. It's kind of like skydiving, like you're in the plane, you're terrified, you don't know if you want to jump, and then the second you leap out that door, like there's no turning back. And the exhilaration and the fulfillment that comes from running your own business, there's nothing quite like it, and it's addictive. And so once you start, you feel like you can never stop.
your story is a success story. You have, yes, you had an idea. You succeeded.
Not yet.
No, okay, not
Not yet, JB.
in,
I don't think so. Like
success is something.
every company's got a point.
I understand. In my perspective, yes, you are a successful person. You are going global.
Mm.
Listeners who are my audience will think, okay, yes, he has done something right. What if we flip the story and you have failed? What you would have done?
I think there's still a chance of failure, right? Like we're
In
3 years into a capital intensive startup. There's no guarantees in life that it's not black and white. Like you always need to be fighting for more growth, more revenue, more success. It's a never ending game. But if it hadn't have worked out at that time, I think I probably would have had a period where I went and earned some good money and some good income as like a sales director at a much bigger business. But I know I only would have lasted 12 months there because it would have eaten my soul up and eaten me alive, turning up to those businesses every day. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are unhappy or dissatisfied with their work right now, and they know they want to do something themselves, and it may not be the right time for them, but if it didn't work, I would have gone and worked for 12 months, and I probably would have come up with some other idea and pursued, a different opportunity.
What would you tell someone who's listening right now, who's standing on the edge of the cliff and they're about to take a leap, but they are not
Mm.
doing it because they are scared of being failed, and they don't want to take a chance. But it's they're there. What is the one word or your tips you want to tell them?
I don't think I can do it in a word. I think there's probably there's a few responsible answers here, and then like a few more encouraging ones. The responsible answers are you really do need to take that leap of faith from like a position of stability. Some people go and do it when they don't have a bit of savings, a bit of security, and a safety net. Like, unfortunately, it's quite irresponsible to go start a business if you can't keep a roof over your head and pay your bills for at least 6 months. Like, you need to have savings. You need to have a way to make sure you're not so broke and that you've got every dollar in it that it could destroy your life.
Mhm.
It's irresponsible. But if you're fortunate enough to be able to take risk for 6 months, and you've got a business plan and you've done the research, I think you should do at least 6 months research before you put any money in. Like, you can stretch $1,000 so far these days with different tools and just searching the web and,
Yep.
using Excel spreadsheets to build out business models. Like, you can actually do so much due diligence before you take that leap of faith that when it comes time to do it, it's not quite so crazy because you've thought about who your customers would be,
Mm.
how you'd make money, where would you get your first product from. Like, you can do all of that at no cost. And then when you're ready to place your first order for like 10 grand worth of product or, build your website or whatever it may be, you've already done enough research to know that, there's potential there. And eventually you can't keep doing stuff and not spending money. You will reach a wall where it's like, okay, you've done all the research you possibly can. Now you need to put in the 50 grand and you need to believe in yourself and back yourself. And that is by far the hardest part. Once you've made that choice and you take the leap of faith, like, it's still going to be hard, but it'll be rewarding. And for someone that's at that point and they've done the research,
Mm.
I would tell them that you only get one shot at life, and like, if all else fails, go find a job. Go
Right.
go
It's not
go
another
stack
one. Okay.
go stack shelves, go drive Uber. Like, there's so much work out there for you to get back on your feet. Like, as long as you don't go too much into debt and get a
Okay.
$500,000 loan or $1 million loan, like, you can always find your way out of these situations. And you just got to believe in yourself. And you can tell I'm really passionate about this because it's a long answer. I think there's too many people that think about business and think about ideas and they just don't take enough action. Like, the number one attribute of an entrepreneur is taking action and like actually doing stuff and following through with the things you say you want to do. So yeah, believe in yourself, take action, and jump out of the plane or
Wow.
jump off the cliff, whatever you want to
This is
call
the
it.
common thread. One word I've been hearing from all entrepreneurs, startups, founders: action. You have to do it. Just do it, and go with the flow, and you won't regret. If you fail, it's a data for future. You won't, or data for someone. And if you succeed, it's you're going to expand, and you're going to help everyone else as well, your friends, your family. Um, the question I have is, you mentioned you built a prototype, and and you also secured some funding, some from investors. You mentioned you reached out to 150 investors.
Mm.
Italy. How did that happen? What was that process?
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that hasn't raised capital before, it's really like sales. Instead of selling, a product or a service, you're selling yourself and you're selling this concept and this dream. And so
Mm.
I created a Google sheet and I searched for hundreds of investors in Australia that do angel and pre-seed funding. And I ultimately ended up filling out their website inquiry forms, finding their email, sending them pitch decks, sending them LinkedIn messages, getting their phone number and cold calling them and saying, hey, I'm Ryan from Refield. I've got this product. I'd love to show you about it. And you know that they're investors. You know that they do this sort of stuff, right? Like, you don't just blindly call anyone. You need to make sure you contact people that do this sort of early stage investing, and then ultimately, um, hopefully you're good enough and you find someone that believes in your vision, and then you get into the detail of taking their money.
So, how did you get that? How did you pitch your product in? Because it wasn't. It was just a prototype. I believe you had a working model
Mm,
to show it to investors, right?
correct.
And what were
Yeah,
you?
this is an important point as well.
So you say, for instance, I'm an investor. I get a call from you. Hey, blah blah blah. there's a product. Are you keen? So what? If I say, okay, may I mind? I'm keen. Where can I check it out? So you what? I have to come to your garage, or you have to come to a common
And
Macca's or somewhere to.
and this is yeah, and this JB, this is a really important point as well for anyone that's trying to raise capital. You can learn from my lesson. I spent 6 months trying to raise that $500,000 before I had the prototype. You've actually triggered a memory for me. And every investor I spoke to said, why would I give you any money when you haven't put any in yourself yet?
Okay, yep, I would do
And
that.
and 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 at that point, they were like, Ryan, it's a beautiful presentation, it's a great concept, but you haven't actually done anything. You haven't built it. You haven't validated that people want to pay you money for this product. So it's too risky for the investor. And that's when I decided to put the $65,000 in, because I said to myself and I said to my wife, no one's going to invest unless I invest in myself. And I think people want to get money before they've put their own cheddar on the line. And that's a really important distinction. Once I went back to the investors 6 months later or a year later,
Hmm.
and I'd actually built a prototype and I had paying customers, the conversation was completely different. And they knew that I wasn't one of the probably thousands of entrepreneurs that contacts them with an idea. Investors aren't interested in
The idea,
investing in ideas.
action.
Investors want to invest in action. They want to invest in real products, real businesses.
Understand. Okay, good. Good you clarified that. Which is because I was wondering. Wow, that's so. So once you build the product, you were able to show them a demo wherever. I mean, at their office or convey
At the
like
University of Technology,
university. Okay,
Sydney.
cool. Going back to the pricing again. So you install these dispensers at the offices, universities, co-working spaces. Are the pricing the same everywhere, or do you because it's university? Is it a change in the pricing structure?
The drinks were cheaper for students. We had to address that. But we've pivoted the model quite a bit since then now. So everyone's got uniform pricing. Like it doesn't matter whether you're one of the biggest companies in the world or one of the smallest,
Hmm.
unless you buy, hundreds of them. Essentially, you're all paying the same price.
Before going to Google, which is your massive client, big client you secured, were you were you
Mm.
already in the market installing those dispensers at small offices or small startups to showcase to Google that what work you have done, or you had none?
No, I had none.
Now, I
So
want to know how did you secure this deal from Google? I want to know end-to-end process.
yeah, people are always interested in that part of like, how do you get Google as your first customer? And it was actually quite a bit of serendipity and luck. And I
Okay.
think that's important to recognize as well. Like in the game of business, there's always a little bit of luck, maybe 5% or 10%. But there's that famous saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I
Really?
think, when you put yourself out there and you take risks, luck has a way of finding you. And so I was pitching on stage in front of 400 people for the UTS Startup Awards with my first product. I'd built the first machine and I was trying to win $10,000 prize money. And I remember my knees shaking and I was so nervous speaking on stage in front of such a big crowd. And I ended up I think I did come second. I came second to that pitch competition.
Okay.
Um, but the victory actually came a week later when I got a LinkedIn DM from a gentleman who oversees all the kitchens at their offices and said, hey, I saw the product. I was sitting in the audience because my son goes to the university as well. And I wasn't there to search for a product. I wasn't there to find a product like this, but we want some of these. When can we get them? And then I showed them a render and a concept of the new machines that were coming, and they actually paid a deposit and committed to it before the product even existed. So we wouldn't be here without them right now.
And are they from Google or are they someone else outside of Google?
They were from Google.
Google. Wow.
No, yeah, they were from Google, and they just happened to be sitting in the audience with their son, and that turned into a business opportunity and eventually a paying customer.
Now you started your startup in Sydney. You expanded to Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide. Um, why did you move to Singapore when people normally focus to get their home ground set up fully before scaling up global? Why did that happen?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, we actually got more demand out of Singapore than we did out of Adelaide or Brisbane. Melbourne, we had quite a bit of demand. We had inbound inquiries, and a lot of our customers that have offices in Sydney, they're global businesses. They employ tens of thousands of people, and so they have an office in Singapore. And people would fly to Sydney for a business meeting, see the refilled machine in their office, and go, "Hey, we want this in Singapore." And so naturally,
Uh,
our expansion in Sydney started to result in opportunities in other countries. And so it eventually reached a point where we had enough critical mass to take the leap of faith and launch into Singapore. And so we did that about 4 or 5 months ago now. And we've got about 10 machines installed over there. We've got distribution partnerships and it's going really great.
what about the supply chain? Are you owning the supply chain, or are you getting a third party to manage the supply chain in Singapore?
It's a little bit of both right now. So we have a local distribution partner that warehouses and installs and maintains the machines, but
Okay.
everything's Australian made. It still comes from here.
The flavors are is also going from here. All whatever flavors
Yep.
you have in them. So,
Yeah,
correct me if I'm
correct.
wrong, Ryan. The dispenser, that's not. Are they getting manufactured in Australia or overseas?
They sure are. So there are some components that come from overseas, but we actually make the machines here in Sydney. We decided to keep the machines Australian made. We want to boost Australian manufacturing. I think it's a shame that we don't build,
Mm.
anything here anymore. And there's advantages with building locally as well. If something goes wrong at our facility, it's just an hour's drive away, so we can get there and check out the production line and make sure everything's going okay. So it is Aussie made at the moment, and we want to try and keep it that way.
And you look after the maintenance of the machines as well once it's installed in the offices.
We do. In Australia, we do. Yeah, in Australia, we maintain all those machines, and service and maintain them, and look after the clients, and like dispatch the syrups and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. So the subscription what companies are paying, that includes the maintenance and servicing cost as well. That's not
Correct.
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 Correct. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, hardware is hard. Manufacturing a hardware onshore Australia is very hard. My understanding.
Mm.
You can you can say yes or no to that. What operational lessons did you learn scaling from 1 to 100 machines?
I mean, that's a lifelong lesson where we're still going through growing pains right now. The more customers we get, the more, I guess, high quality our systems and processes need to be and more well thought out, because you can't be in, two places at once. So, we've learned how to optimize things, triage, tickets and, there's things that are, really urgent and important, like a critical leak, like something might be physically leaking in their office, which is rare, but it does happen. And then there's simple things like, I don't know, maybe the internet connectivity's gone down and you need to get out there and sort of resolve that. So we've learned to triage problems and implement help desks. But all in all, it's, you just learn by doing. I don't think there's any real science to it. You just got to see what others are doing again and implement systems to support the business as it grows.
Oh, are you the only player right now in the market, or do you have any competition in this?
So in APAC, and it's like within Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, we're the only player that provides this sort of appliance. There are two or three other well-known companies worldwide that have raised tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars doing something similar in the US and Europe. And so we want to be the market leader
Mm.
for Southeast Asia and put our foot down and really cement ourselves as the best provider of this sort of product in the region. And, we might eventually go global as well.
What is your advice on pricing and product testing for someone who wants to do a startup?
Pricing and product testing.
Yes.
It's an interesting one. I mean, there's such a variety of products out there. The
Very,
true
very high
test,
level.
the true test.
Someone's got an idea, they want to do something similar to yours. It could be a different product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where should I start from? What is your insights and tips on that?
The Yeah, the best tips I can say is to start small and just start immediately. There's no validation quite like an actual customer pulling out their credit card, their hard-earned cash, and paying you for something. Like that is true validation. You can ask all the surveys, all the questionnaires, all the street interviews you want. The only time you'll truly know whether someone values your product enough to pay for it is if you give them an opportunity to buy it. And so if you've got an e-commerce idea, a service-based business, you want to create a product or sell something online, like you just got to do it and start small, and the market will tell you whether you're onto something or not. If
Mhm.
no one buys it, no one wants it. If people start buying it, I always love to think that if you can sell it once, then you can sell it 10 times. And if you can sell it 10 times, you can sell it 1,000 times. And if you can sell it 1,000 times, you can sell it 1,000,000 times. It all starts with that first sale.
How how long should an entrepreneur wait or put time from idea to scaling up? Did you have any plans? Okay, I'm going to give 1 year or 2 years for this product and see how it performs before I call it a quits, or you know what I mean. So what
Yeah,
was
it's
your process?
It's quite a hard question because there's a lot of variety in different circumstances. But in general, I think with startups, if you're going to fail, you want to fail quickly. You don't want the worst thing you can do is fail slowly.
Mm,
If you work on an idea for 5 or 6 years and like you can't break through past like $1 million in sales, then it might just be a great lifestyle business that can pay you 100 grand a year and it does a couple $100,000. But you want to figure that out within the first 1 or 2 years. Like you're not going to make any money for the first year. Um, I think within the first 12 months, you should definitely know whether there's an opportunity there. And you'll know yourself, like when you start making progress, you just keep climbing the mountain. The second that you have too many roadblocks and there's boulders hitting you in the face and everyone's saying no and you can't discount it, you can't give it away for free, no one wants it, and the writing's on the wall, sometimes you just got to call it quits, eat your humble pie
yep.
and say, look, that one's not going to work and it wasn't the best idea and maybe you should shut it down and go again because if you spend another 3 years trying to force something to work that just there's so much friction, there's so much tension, it's not getting anywhere, you've actually wasted 3 years that you could have been putting into something new that had the right timing, the right market, the right branding, and the right consumer need. And I hate seeing people that have like struggled on an idea for 5 or 6 years. It's sad to see
Sad
sometimes.
to see that. Okay, I have two last questions before we wrap up. This has been a wonderful interview, and a lot of insights from you. So, who would you love as your next global partner? Do you have anyone in mind?
Yeah, I think that'd actually be one of the biggest beverage brands in the world. So we really see ourselves as a technology company, and if we could work with the big alcohol brands, the big soft drink brands, I believe we could actually empower them to serve their drinks more sustainably. And we're not going to get rid of all the plastic bottles in the world. That's naive to think that we're going to solve that. But, if we can get 5%, 10% of global consumption to be refilled instead of single use, that's a positive step in the right direction.
A successful entrepreneur like you, once they know their business is doing well, they start to venture into other areas, start up other ideas, and start to work on other prototypes or other businesses. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
towards who's want to expand their business on different prototypes or different ideas versus sticking on to one product like yours and focusing on them? What is your type? Are you going to focus on this business, or eventually do you have plans to venture into other business as well?
Right. I think there's two things here. Like within a certain business, sometimes when the good's going good, you actually get bored and you want to like continue innovating forever. And it's called the shiny toy, like the next shiny toy, and it's just a distraction. Like if you found something that works
Hmm.
and there's people buying it and you've barely scratched the surface, you should really just laser focus in what you're good at and grow that until it can't grow anymore. There's just so much opportunity to be had. And until refill reaches that limit and that ceiling, I can't see myself working on anything else. But one day, who knows? I mean, I don't know if I'll do refill till I'm 70. I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of other things that I get involved in as well along the way.
Hey, Ryan, look, what I've been seeing throughout this interview is your clarity in how you have built this idea and how you've been confident on selling this idea and bringing it to life. So that is something I admired. So thank you so much in this podcast for sharing your insights and those questions. And these were the spontaneous questions that was just coming to my head, and you were very welcoming and gave the honest and transparent responses, which will be helping our listeners who got a burning idea they wanted to put it to test. I'm hoping the listeners will take some insights from this interview and start implementing in their life. So thank you again for your time today.
No, no worries. Look, I'm really glad to help, and I'm no expert. I'm still learning myself. I think if I can inspire just one person to pursue their dreams and chase their passion and start a business, and even supporting you and your podcast, like I'm happy to come on and be a part of it, because you never know what these opportunities, could
Yeah.
result in. And I hope, I wish you all the best, and I hope any entrepreneurs or founders out there that want to give a business a go, I hope they back themselves and they jump out of the plane.